I guess we'll know more when we get closer to that. But as far as actual features go into Starknet, so there are the basic ones. So next generation sequencer and mempool integration with. For features that are actually in the of the Starknet protocol, this is still to be discussed. We haven't converged internally. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. And can you help us get to the plan on how to maintain the compatibility with the existing infrastructure during this transition, if we have something?
What do you mean?
So, I mean, how do we plan to maintain the compatibility with the existing infrastructure when we transition to the next phase? Do we have any plans for that, or it is still to TBD?
It depends that on what you're referring to as compatibility. Like for all the users of the chain, it should be seamless. Uh, if there will be actions to be taken by nodes, which I don't think so, because there isn't still no RPC upgrade plan, then nothing is to be done.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, Yorick, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Just two parts to that. Like, we do need to start factoring in that, like, we need to have a plan to reach out to all of the RPC providing teams, make sure that they have direct connections to the different sequencers and like have access to mempools that are being rolled out there, and just make sure that they're prepped for that. And I guess, like, for some time, like, Starkware needs to continuously maintain at least like one node that's like still feeds the feeder gateway and make sure that these things are still in place.
At least in the first stage, there is no deprecation of the feeder gateway. So
Okay.
so all the people consuming this information will not be affected.
Okay.
So I want to bring up a quick wider discussion on what the relationship looks like between execution layer and consensus, and I kind of want feedback from all of the teams on how they see this developing. Like, are there going to be separations between these things? Should we be able to have intersections of different implementations for client diversity needs or not? Should every implementation be monolithic and we just continue with whatever the fastest approach is to get to like a working mainnet? Does that question make sense? So essentially, like, should Juno interface with like Malachite, and should that be done earlier, or should we just like continue working on our Go implementation? And how do all of the teams fit into this picture?
Maybe say 2 words in this. Or was speaking to Shahak. Do you want to take this?
Yeah. Yes.
Go ahead.
I was just. Let me turn on the camera. Okay. I was just saying that we're planning to split the peer-to-peer network so that you can have like your node discover sync nodes, or your node discover consensus nodes or mempool nodes, and once we have that, then you can have one implementation for a sync node and one implementation for a consensus node, and connect the two. So it is possible to do that. Now, maybe the decision of is it expected from nodes to do that? I think for now it's individual to each node, and we can have maybe in the future have like some protocol of communication between an execution node and a consensus node.
Yeah. So the question is, like, do we see a need to specify this protocol now, or do we wait? And I think your answer here is that we wait until we have a working network. Is that
I think yes, but maybe you have a better insight.
No, just if we don't do it now, then we will pay a lot more in engineering time later if we decide that this is some feature that we want from the network, right? But it's unclear if making that decision now would slow down the development time and work on the current.
Okay, I think I'll try to think more about it now the next call.
So Addy and Anik are discussing this right now as well. So maybe you can
perfect.
on a chat. I think any of the answers is perfectly fine. I would just like to have kind of one person say, this is the direction, let's just go.
Yeah, Nick.
Yes, I think another question I think we were discussing internally was when we talk about modularity, at what level do we mean modularity? Do we want to say that let's say different components can interact with different components irrespective of language? Or do we want to, let's say, have like a particular implementation in each language, and then we expect modularity to be limited to, let's say, in each language? So what are people's thoughts around that? And yeah.
I don't think there is a reason to restrict for a specific language, as long as like you have two processes and they're communicating between each other with just bytes, and we have like protobuf to encode the same data. I think we can have work with the different language implementations.
Yeah, I think the reason why I asked this is because then it requires probably a greater effort in terms of specifying the messages. So, for example, like just specifying, proposal and vote messages, I don't think are sufficient to, let's say, an interaction between an agnostic execution client versus a consensus client. In particular, like if the execution client has very little knowledge of what the consensus client is doing, or how it's meant to change the state, or what the different states are, then a proposal message and vote message doesn't seem sufficient. So we need to further think about, okay, what are the APIs that are required in order to make sure that we can support such separations of concerns. And obviously we can take inspiration from Ethereum's separation of execution and consensus client. But if we do decide to do that, then we should do it as soon as possible, as Jörg says.
That sounds good, but language, I don't see how it affects.
No.
The language, what happens is that you don't have to, like, then your boundary of what you interact over a network reduces, right? You're just you're interacting based on your language message structures, not necessarily over network, right? So, for example,
yeah, but we've already crossed that barrier with the peer-to-peer protocol, so we can do the same solution there, and I don't think that it will be problematic. Like I don't think it would cost us with time of specification.
No, I'm not saying it will. Well, I think time is required, but I think we need to make that decision in order to specify further. I don't think the current specifications are enough to support the interaction between agnostic execution and consensus clients. So that's what I'm saying.
Okay. So I think that we need to decide if we do want to go with it now or not, and if yes, then we'll write something now to the peer-to-peer specs. Actually, maybe it needs to be a separate repo.
Right, but it also has an impact on what each of the consensus clients then exposes in terms of its P2P layer. So like the consensus network, right?
We already published that into the peer-to-peer specs repo.
Yeah.
We already have a specs repo, so it's problematic.
We just merge them in maybe. Just have one place where people can go and understand the whole protocol.
Okay. I think, guys, we should move to the next topic on the agenda, which is updates from the client teams. So if Christian from Pathfinder would want to go ahead, and if you could share the key challenges from the JSON RPC integration.
So frankly, we haven't done much since the last meeting with JSON RPC. We still think that our implementation is complete, and there have been no meaningful feedback yet, which we are eagerly waiting, by the way. So if anyone runs into strange responses or behavior from Pathfinder, either for the new WebSocket API or the new method implementations, we would be very much interested in that. But apart from this, we still think that it's complete.
Okay. So let us move to Juno then. And Kirill, if you can update us on the status of our remaining WebSocket endpoints.
Right. So on the WebSocket side, we still have 2 pending PRs. I was planning to merge them this week, but we found yesterday just one bug in one of them. But I'm still thinking that we will manage to merge them before the end of this year. So no worries on this side.
Okay, perfect. And now, anyone from Kesar Labs? I saw that. Yeah.
Antiro is not there today. On the JSON RPC side, I don't think we have anything, but we made a lot of progress on the P2P side.
Okay. Okay, so Antrio is not there. Okay, then let us move to the next topic on the agenda, which is like SOS blocks and consensus security, which I think Denisa would be able to answer. So if you could update on the SOS blocks implementation progress, Denisa.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me turn on my camera. Yeah, we started to chat with Leo about this, and we are still waiting to see how we can progress. We need some pieces of the puzzle to put everything together. So yeah, we are probably postponing it for the beginning of the next year and come back with a better update on this one.
And is there any development on the amnesia attack mitigation strategies which we discussed last time?
Yeah, we just had a meeting with Informal Systems to discuss well, to wrap up the year, and we haven't touched on this one because we were focused on how to make the implementations synchronized. So it was more of an engineering meeting than a research one, but we are planning to have another course at the beginning of the next year to synchronize on this. But Adi is here, so if he knows more, Adi, please go ahead.
I don't have more anything to add to that. Actually, most of the effort in the last couple of weeks, we were simply focusing on wrapping up all the necessary things to be able to make the repo for Malachite open source, and it is now open source. We just made it so today. So we did not progress on accountability. We were focusing mostly on the engine, the Tendermint in Rust engine side.
Okay. So now the repo is open source?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so next, Okay, so the next topic is Malachite integration. And Adi, I think you can answer this.
Yep.
So could you outline the integration roadmap with Kesar or any other June nodes?
So I think for Juno node, we just started discussing today. I mean, it's unclear if that's the right way to, if it's even feasible or if it's the right way to do it. It goes into the broader discussion that Yorick mentioned earlier about separation of the actual replication part of the sequencer and the execution part of the sequencer. We don't know if that's going to happen, but with Rust-based clients, Pathfinder and Madara, integration looks to be a lot more simpler because it's all Rust code base. We did have an initial call. When was that? December 10th, so roughly a week and a half ago. We gave access to everyone to the repo back then, and we laid out a couple of ideas on how integration should proceed. We created a Slack channel to keep each other in tight integration, in tight loop. But there's no actual engineering effort as far as I started. We provided a bunch of kind of pointers in that initial call. We looked a bit at the code base. We looked at some of the docs, and I'm actually drafting now another message in that Slack channel with, in particular, with the Madara, Qatar, and the Equilibrium teams to give them a couple more pointers of docs that we have been writing. And probably in January we're going to start that effort in more earnest. So I understand the Equilibrium team, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're focused more on the node and this integration with Gateway and other things, and JSON RPC, the newest version, and you will start in January. And I think the Khazar team might have already started looking at the code. But yeah, that's as far as I can tell.
Okay. I think Antrio would be the right person, but he's not available to answer this. So, okay. So, and what's the current status of the documentation for the January release?
Good question. We released it today, so there we ended up accelerating the release timeline in a rare engineering effort of not meeting the deadline but doing the deadline earlier. And the documentation is ready. Like we published an architecture doc that describes how do you build general purpose any kind of application on top of the core part of Malachite, which is really just the library, the Tendermint library, and that includes it also includes additional documentation that shows how you can build on the, let's say, outer layers of the engine if you want to use more higher level primitives, and you are okay to rely on certain assumptions like using Tokyo channels, using Tokyo runtime, and a few other things. So the documentation is actually ready. I would say at least the initial side. Yeah, the initial.
Okay. And are there any technical blockers that need community input for this?
That's a really good question. I'm not aware of any technical blockers right now. I think we need to do the initial with Equilibrium and Khazar team and potentially other teams. We just need to do the legwork of actual integration, like get the two code bases together and see if there's intermediate abstraction layers that are missing that would be necessary. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, I believe like we have almost completed our agenda, and we still have like 8 minutes left. So if anyone wants to open up some other topic which we want to discuss, yeah, Christian.
But just a minor question related to the Malachite release. Have you released the crates to crates IO too? Oh, okay. Because that's actually been a question of how we can integrate these crates into our code base to start working with that. But it should be trivial then. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so any other topic if someone wants to, Christian, your hand is still raised. Okay. Okay, then I believe the call for today is almost over, and I just wanted to notify about the next meeting, which is scheduled to be on 2nd January, but because of the holiday season, we have decided we would postpone that meeting and just carry on with the next meeting after that, which is 16th January. And okay. Okay, so our next call will be on 16th January 2025 in a new year, guys. And all the meeting notes and the recording will be posted on the GitHub repo after this call for all of you. And yeah, have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye, guys.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.